حفظه أنبيائه ورسله سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وهو آخر الكتب السماوية، وقد تكفل الله تعالى بحفظه إلى يوم الدين. قال تعالى: إنا نحن نزلنا إنا نحن نزلنا الذكر وإنا له لحافظون. وقال تعالى: لقد آتيناك سبعا من المثاني والقرآن العظيم. I said the Quran. The Quran, it is the a divine book that was sent down by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala onto the seal of all of the prophets and messengers. Our beloved, our leader, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the last book, is the final book. No more books after the Quran. No more divine books or revelations after the Quran, because no more prophets, right? So revelations are only sent down to prophets, right? And that Allah has taken it upon Himself, right, to guard over the Quran to the judgment. Allah says that we are the ones who send the Quran, and we are the ones who will guard over it. So there's a promise in the Quran itself. The Quran is guarded and preserved to the day of judgment, as opposed to the other books that were sent down, that they were adulterated by the people who received right. And Allah has said that indeed we have given you the seven of the oft repeated verses and the great Quran. The seven of the oft repeated verses, it is the Fatiha, right? And it is said that in the Quran consists of all of what is needed, or it basically is a summary of all of the previous texts from before. The summary of all of the previous texts from before the Quran, right? And it is the final book from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's compulsory for all those who came after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to hold on to the Quran only. So they are not allowed to hold on to their own book anymore because it's no longer relevant. وقد جرى عرف العلماء على إطلاق لفظ الكتب على كتب الأربعة المتقدمة، وإطلاق لفظ الصحف على ما عدا ذلك مما أوحى الله على جملة من رسله. وأما الصحف فقد أنزل الله تعالى صحفا على عدد من أنبيائه، ومن ذلك قوله تعالى: إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. وقيل إنما 100 صحيفة، 10 على آدم، و50 على شيث، و30 على إدريس، و10 على إبراهيم. وتحقيق الإمساك عن حصرها في عدد الاختلاف فيه، فالواجب على المكلف الاعتقاد أن الله تعالى أنزل كتابا من السماء على الإجمال إلا كتب الأربعة، فالواجب عليه معرفتها الإيمان بها تفصيلا. Right. So this is a side note, right, with regards to the books of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So with regards to the Quran, right, the Quran is the final text from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it covers all the previous texts. So there was once, saying, so there comes the question, should we study the other text that was sent down, right, when we have the Quran? And the answer is no. Right? Because Sayyidina Omar, he was studying the Torah, and there are some found him studying the Torah. There are some scolded him, saying that why do you study the Torah when what you have in the Quran is enough? And because Sayyidina Omar was saying, no, I'm just going to take what I see to be beneficial, and I will leave the rest. But you don't know what in the Torah and Injil is true and what are false, right? And what is false. And especially especially the Torah and the Injil, right? That the Jews and the Christians, they have a knack for inventing stories against prophets to say that prophets are able to sin, right? So that to show that prophets are human in some sense, they invent the slander the prophets. They invent stories against prophets to show that prophets also sinned. So they will say things like, "Oh, Nabi Dawud was a drunkard." They will say things like, "There's terrible things about the prophets, terrible things about the prophets, like fornicators and whatever," because they want to make it okay for them to be sinners. So therefore, they bring the level of the prophets down to a sinner. And I read a story once, about this person who came into Islam because he was someone, he said that in his story, right? He said that he grew up as someone who loved the prophets. As a Christian, right? As a Christian, he loved the stories of the prophets. He loved the prophets. He would wait for every week for church to hear more and more about the prophets. So, when he could, he began to take the Bible and began to read about the prophets. And he was horrified that in the Bible there was so many stories of the sins of prophets. That they were drunkards and fornicators and con men, and they were cheats and whatsoever. All kinds of stories about the prophets. They're all lies. So this made him this feel disheartened, and he left Christianity. So how could it be that our leaders, the prophets of our leaders, that they succumb to sin and the rest of us? That to him it doesn't make sense. There is mustahil aqli. It does not make sense. But eventually in his life, he stumbled upon Islam and he realized that Islam speaks about the same prophet, but in Islam, not a single blemish on prophets. I no blame whatsoever on prophets, and that is the aqidah in Islam, and therefore he embraced Islam. Right? So, mashallah. Right. So for us to understand that this is the aqidah of Islam, that we do not say anything bad about our prophets. So anyway, saying now Omar, he wanted to learn the other books, right? Or some scolded him saying that you don't know what of it is true, you don't know what of it is false, and in fact, it will cause a lot of disturbance inside of you. Like it will cause a lot of disturbance inside of you when you read all these kind of stories about previous prophets, and these are not true stories. And really, whatever will cause disturbance inside of you, stay away from. Right. So, yesterday there was a question like whether we should watch Murtad videos. Okay, I will not say that it will cause your iman to shake, because for me to say that, right, is for me to say that there is something wrong with our iman. You get me? And so for example, right, if there is a flaw in in the creed of a religion, for example, if there is a flaw, right, the leaders of the religion or the teachers of the religion will say to them, don't go so deep into it, right? It will bother you. Don't go so deep into it. In a sense, they're trying to hide over the flaw that is there in the Aqidah of the religion. This is why I refrain from saying, it's gonna make you doubt. I refrain from saying that because it will not. It will not make you doubt. And I will say you can go as deep as you, and I've seen this before in my classes, you can go as deep as you want into Islam, as deep as you want, as deep as you want into Islam, right? And you will not find anything that will shake you if your understanding is correct. If your understanding, your aqidah is correct, there will be nothing in Islam that will shake you. In fact, in Islam, the more and more you learn about Islam, the more and more you will believe Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So I don't think that listening to the videos of this, murtads will cause your iman to shake. I don't believe that. And because I know it will not. It will not. And this is why also I say that as long as you have a teacher to always turn to, because in case your Aqidah is not strong enough, in case your Aqidah is too weak, you get me? Right? So in case of that, okay, at least you have a teacher to turn to and to ask questions, right? But if you're gonna read it yourself with weak Aqidah, then I'll say no, because your weak Aqidah, can be detrimental onto you. Nothing about Islam, that the deeper you go into Islam, the more the more you will feel unsure about it. No. Unlike other religions, the deeper they go into it, the more unsure you will be of the religion. In Islam, the deeper you go into it, the more sure you will be of your religion, and that is a sign of its truth. Right. Nah, right. So anyway, this is why I like you can study the Quran as much as you want. You can study the Sharia as much as you want. You study some as much as you want. Your iman is only going to increase if you have correct understanding. Of his only when Shaitan manipulates and makes people misunderstand certain things that they would so anyway, Rasulullah he forbids Sayyidina Umar from reading the books of the Christians and Jews, saying that what you have in the Quran has sufficed all the goodness in these books. The Quran is 100% from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just take the Quran. The Quran is in the Quran, and the fact is that majority of us, we have not even studied the Quran one time round. We have read the Quran, yes, many times round, right? But have we ever studied the Quran tafsir cover to cover? No, right? We take a very long time just to go through a few pages of the Quran, isn't it? It's a very long time because the Quran is an ocean of knowledge, and you will never finish studying the Quran. And in fact, the likes of Imam Ghazali, the kind of intellect Imam Ghazali had, towards the end of his life, no book could suffice his intellect except the Quran. Right? Like he really literally he had mastered all the other books except the Quran. Mashallah. Right. So anyway, it is said here that it is understood that the word kutub refers to the four kutub, Zabur, Injil, Torah, and the Quran, and the word suhuf refers to everything besides that. It is said that the suhuf, Allah sent down about 100, right? Or it was said that Allah sent down to the number of prophets, the suhuf, right? Allah sent down suhuf to the number of prophets, and in the Quran, Allah gives proof in Surah A'la, indeed, this were in the scrolls of those came before, the scrolls of Ibrahim and Musa, and it said that Allah sent down, 100. Some say the number of prophets, and that it was said that 10 of the scriptures to the Nabi Adam alayhi salam, 50 scriptures to Nabi Shis, Nabi Shis is the son of Nabi Adam alayhi salam, 30 scriptures Nabi Idris, and then 10 Nabi Ibrahim, right, and so on and so forth, right? And there's a lot of opinions in regards to how many scriptures, how many books to different prophets. And what is important for us is that Allah sent books to the prophets. He sent books. Right? For us to believe as a whole, generally, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent books to the prophets, and He sent scriptures to the prophets, and all of the goodness in these books and the scriptures, they are all gathered in the Quran. And so we have the last book for us to hold on to and to believe completely in. Anyone who denies anything in the Quran, when they disbelieve in anything in the Quran, this would bring a person into kufr. But of course, you don't say to them they are kafirs straight away, but rather you try and make them understand. I make them understand what is in the Quran, and if they still disbelieve in it, then they fall under the category of kafir. That is dangerous because there are laws out there where the laws, the proof of these laws are in the Quran. The proof of these laws are in the Quran. So the people who actually disbelieve in these laws, like for example, the laws of inheritance, the law is in the Quran. The law of iddah is in the Quran. I mean, there are laws that are in the Quran itself, right? Even the law of hijab is in the Quran. And so those who deny these laws, then they are risking themselves as being, those who have denied the Quran. And the one who has denied the Quran, they are not a believer. They cannot become as a believer. The believer must be a believer in the Prophet. So a believer in God, in Allah, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a believer in the Prophet ﷺ, and a believer in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we've come to the point where I want to reach for this halaqa. Any questions? Are there any questions? Should I go through the exam paper? Should I go through it? You want me to go through it? I won't show anybody's marks, but I'll just go through the answers. Should I? You want me to go through the exam paper? Mm. I won't show anybody's marks already. There are only 6 responses. So let me just share live. Okay. But I won't show anyone's name. You just see the response. Okay. Was it hard? Not hard, right? It's very easy. So kutub and suhuf, yani kutub and suhuf, they are similar in the way the suhuf tends to be shorter, kutub longer, right? That's all. There's a biggest difference. Kutub suhuf also has law, suhuf also has dhikr. But the biggest difference is that for regards to kutub is shorter, suhuf is longer. That's all. Okay, I asked this question for me to know what's your attendance like. Right. So alhamdulillah, half of those who took the test, which is 3 out of 6, and it's 6 people took the test, Let me show you yours, but 6 people took the test. Right. Out of so 3 of them came most lessons, and then 2 of them came half the lessons, and they came more. Just for me to know. Okay. What happened here? Ya Allah. In every lesson, I read this out loud. I mean, almost every lesson I say Naylul Maaram, شرح عقد الإسلام, عقد الإسلام الإمام الحداد, ونيل المرام الشيخ عبد الله بن سالم بن سعيد بن خريسة. I read almost every lesson. What happened? Okay, what is in the Aqidah? The early scholars Salaf as compared to the later scholars Khalaf. And 2 of you got this wrong. You said that the early scholars interpret the mutashabihat this figuratively, while the scholars take what? Them literally. Opposite. Right. No, no, sorry. The scholars, no, they don't take them literally. It's the Wahhabis who take them literally. The scholars do not take them literally, and the early scholars do not interpret these verses. They don't. They don't interpret these verses. Right. So here is the answer. The early scholars do not interpret the Shafi'at verses. Yes. Right. While the scholars do it in the way that is befitting to Allah's Majesty. Mm-hmm. Okay, I hope that is clear. Okay. Right. Which is the following is not a reason why they are wrong. not a reason. Is it a good deed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Um, they don't actually say this. It is wrong. The statement is wrong, but they don't actually say this. Okay, so it's not the reason, right? They do say the Quran is created. So it is the reason why they are wrong. Okay. Okay, this one. I'm kind of concerned about the answers and results. Inshallah, you're revised, okay? And you understand the material. Maybe the question is too tricky. Really tricky. Is it my fault? Tricky question. I mean, up to you all. You want to see, don't see. It's going to be recorded anyway, right? So you can see the recording later on. But you should have done it by now, okay? I give it out yesterday anyway. You have 24 hours to do it. Why haven't you done it? Huh? 24 hours to do it, right? Anyway, up to you. Which of the following is not part of Imam Malik, right? Well, yeah, Imam Malik's answer. The man asked him about the verse Ar-Rahman, استوى على العرش, right? So the answer is not part of his answer. Not part of his answer. Right? This was part of his answer. He said, الكلمة استواء غير مجهول. It is not unknown. He said that, right? And then he said, and to ask about Allah, how Allah istiwa is an innovation. That was part of his answer. Yes. The istiwa of Allah is exactly as the word means. This means on the throne. That is not Imam Malik's answer. In fact, this is a statement of the Wahhabi. Same of the Mu'tazila and the Wahhabi. Right? It was not Imam Malik's answer. Right? And then to believe in the verse is compulsory. Yes, right. To believe in the verse is compulsory. Okay. So I'm testing you how much you all understood of the class. Okay. We should the following is not considered for being a Sahabi. To see some one's own eyes. Yeah, it's not considered because there were Sahaba who were blind. Right? So to see some of your own eyes is not a condition. Right? To be a believer at the point of Islam, yes, it's a condition. And to meet him in his lifetime, yes, it's a condition. He went to the Christian Sahaba a few times. Okay. But to be blind and not to be blind is not a condition. And but to meet him and to believe in him, yes, is a condition. Therefore, it's not the virtue of La ilaha illallah, not a virtue. It is accepted even from someone who is not sincere. It is not accepted. Mm. La ilaha illallah is not accepted from someone who's not sincere. Okay, right. So the ones with the abundance will free himself from the shaitan. It is a virtue. It's one of the highest I went through from the book. The word Samad, right. Ashim is the one who's doing it at all times. So it was Samad. All right. Why do you raise our hands to sky? Everybody got this one. Alhamdulillah. كده الدعاء اللهم أنت الأول فليس قبلك شيء وأنت الآخر فليس قبلنا شيء بعدك شيء وأنت الظاهر فليس فوقك شيء وأنت الباطن فليس منك شيء. This is right before sleep. So now we know who does it. It's always before you sleep. Not before you leave the house or when you enter the house. No, it's a dua before sleep. In case in the khulasa. Right, so as you see the names there. And see now, I want to expose you all. I won't check the names, don't worry. I won't check the names to see who answered what. It's going to be exposure. The dua mentioned in division 9 is taken by some of the comments as proof that this dua, right, is proof that Allah does not occupy space. Yeah, right. It's the dua that was mentioned in the Shara. The proof does not occupy space because Allah and the zahiru falaysa fawqa shay. You are zahir, you are most manifest, and there is nothing above you, nothing below you, nothing above you, which means Allah is not in a space dimension. Okay. The scholars are say it's all correct, alhamdulillah, all correct, mashallah. Okay, the word Quran has two meanings, not one meaning. You remember I went through this? The Quran has two meanings, right? First meaning is the word of Allah, that is His essence, that is the one that is uncreated. Second meaning is what we recite in the Mus'haf. Yes. And that one is created. Okay. True or false? Mm. True or false? Imam al only lived 400 years ago. He follows the Salaf, not the Khalaf. He follows the Aqidah of the Salaf, right? The earlier scholars. I emphasize this a lot in the beginning of the classes. Like one of the differences between the Ash'ariyah Aqidah and the Maturidiyah in Aqidah is the definition of Qadar and Qadar that is true. The definition are reversed, that is true. So that's why it's not a big deal, the difference. Because what the Ash'ariyah say to be Qadar, the Maturidiyah say that it is Qadar. And what the Ash'ariyah say is Qadar, the Maturidiyah say that it is Qadar. And they are both you must believe in. Okay? So this is a true statement. Right? When the believer sends salam to Rasulullah or the soul to Rasulullah to the Prophet, yes, it's true. The best dhikr is La ilaha illallah, and the best dua is Alhamdulillah. That is true. In a hadith, it is said that the blessing of Allah is found in Surah Baqarah, Al Imran, Surah Nisa. That is false. That is false. Right? The blessing of Allah in the hadith, it was mentioned Baqarah, Al Imran, and Taha. Right? Not Nisa. Mhm. Bar is one of Allah's names. It is a fifth. It forms Rabb, and Rabb is one of Allah's names. That is true. Okay, if Allah Allah give us the ability and taught us to take the means because it ensures we will arrive at the ends. That is false. Alhamdulillah, four of you got it right. And Allah has set the provision of anyone in His creation, but the must, but they must put in the effort in order to receive His provision. False. You don't have to put in any effort to get your provision. It will come to you, whether or not you put in effort. Right? So the answer is false. And the last one. Okay, alhamdulillah. That was okay, that was not bad. I shouldn't scroll way up. But that was not bad. Okay. I won't check people's marks and whose marks are where. You all will get your results automatically so you can see your own results. So I wouldn't be checking who did what and how much you all got. But I think I must check see who's top. Let's go and check. See who's top. Okay, barakallahu fikum. There are no questions. We will end our class there. Next
Okay.
year we'll continue
Assalamualaikum,
with the
Ustazah.
second half of now. Your question.
Yeah, regarding the difference between the qada and qadar between the Ash'ariyah and Maturidiyah, I don't know whether I
Mm.
missed it during the lesson, but do you mind explaining it again?
Okay, the qada and the qadar, right? So of the Ash'ariyah and the Maturidiyah, there's a good question. Let me just get to the book. So I think we are on وَإِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ أَمْرًا. Now we are on this section of the definition of qada and qadar. Kan? Let me just get the definition. Mm. Mm. Okay, somewhere in the book lah. But anyway, I can just answer it. I don't know where it is in the book. It's somewhere in the book. Okay. The definition of qada and qadar, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the qada is what Allah has already determined in, azali, and from before time. Right? What has already been determined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from before time. The qadar is what Allah has apportioned. And it means the apportioning, of things. Right? So you say that the qada is what has already been decreed, and the qadar is what will manifest of the decree. Okay? So the Maturidiyah say the opposite. They say no, the qadar is what has already been decreed, and the qada is what will manifest of what has been decreed. Yeah, this one. That is the opposite. Right? But we believe in both of them lah. You have to believe in both of them anyway. You don't believe in one. There is here. فالقضاء لغة الحكم، وشرعا هو إرادة الله تعالى الأزلية المتعلقة بالأشياء. And so the qada of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is the ruling, right? So it's Allah's will that is pre-eternal. Right? Allah's will that is pre-eternal. Right? So the qadar, right, is what happens, what actually manifests in the creation. Right? The Maturidiyah, they say the opposite. Right? And they say that, okay, the qadar is what is in Allah's knowledge, that is azali, that is there's no beginning, no end, right? And the qada is what happens in creation. Okay, that's so the difference between qada and qadar. Opposite meaning. I mean, they switch it, they flip it, and
As in, what does it mean?
there's
What
no
it manifests in the creation?
now. That means, for
What does it
example,
mean?
Allah so the qada, for example, is written. Qada is written that okay, you will live till age, not you lah, somebody. If somebody will live till age 50. Okay? The qadar is when it actually happens. That's all. It's not a big matter. That's all. So like in a sense, the qada is a blueprint, and then the qadar is the like what happens. What actually happens. It's the same thing. Yeah. You get me? Right, so so the qada is the blueprint and the qadar is the building that is built on the blueprint. You get what I'm saying?
Then why is there a need to differentiate the two terms?
Because they both happen. That's all. So Allah has a plan and Allah executes his plan. This one. Right? This one is a bit of what is qada, what is qadar, but it doesn't matter because this is we always say it together. Al qada wal qadar, al qada wal qadar. And it's used interchangeably. So people say, هذا قضاء الله, هذا قدر الله. They will say it, they will use it interchangeably. Right? It doesn't matter. It is mean the same thing. Allah is agree. That's one. Okay. Is it okay? That's one. On the qada and the qadar. Okay, Alhamdulillah, Barakallahu fikum. I hope that it was beneficial. Um, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So I hope it was beneficial, inshallah. Um, forgive me for any mistakes on my part. Inshallah, you all can think about your aqidah this year, this semester, and really have these meanings, come deep into you. So that Zainab actually, if you realize whenever you go to in class, right, you'll find it reaffirmed in the Zainab's class. She actually reaffirms all of what we say in class. Do you realize that? And sometimes things that I just say in class, the Zainab reaffirms it in her class. Do you realize that if you all go me for Zainab's class, and I hope you all have been like the same things reaffirmed. MashaAllah. And this is the truth of Ahl al-Haqiqah, Allah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. Keep us in your du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.